Hi everyone. Hello. Um, I'm so excited to see you all here. I know Tuesday evenings my time is not the time that I normally run my tours, but because my weekend schedule has been was pretty busy, and I also try not to overlap with wonderful tours of my colleagues. I thought it would be probably easier to do it today. And the recording. Hi Cindy. Hi dear. Hi, everyone. And the recording of this tour, just like what I do with most of my tours, will be available in open access on my YouTube channel. So if you have to leave earlier or if someone is late, then you'll be able to catch up with it. So for a couple of days, it will be there on my YouTube channel. And then, as you know, it will be available for my supporters 24/7 on the secret playlist. And before we begin, and before I fill you in about what this tour is going to look like, I would like to share with you some links. So the schedule. Hi, Julie. Good to see you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, thank you for joining this tour. It's it means a lot that you're interested. And it's so great to see that. Uh, well, you join to tours of well, regardless of the destinations I take you to. This really nice. Thank you so much. So here are the links. First of all, the schedule for the next week is almost ready. There's likely to be one more tour added, but I will inform you. As usual, you know where to follow me on my website, anayaguide.com, on Together Virtually Facebook group, and my tours. Almost all of them on time appear on the website. As you know, the guides collective are working on the website. It's not so easy to manage it, but well, we appreciate your patience and support. Thank you so much for it. So today we are heading to, actually to the territory of Judean foothills. I will show you the map. You'll get the idea where we are. And we're going to see a place called Beit Guvrin Maresha. It normally has two names, kind of two different sites, but actually it's one of the same site that refers to kind of different periods. And the video that I prepared for today was filmed. Um, it took us 3 times to film it altogether because this area of the national park is very big. And by the way, so you would see this is the image I found on the internet. It's a royalty-free image. This is just one area of Beit Guvrin, a Crusader time amphitheater. Well, actually, Roman time amphitheater. But the area over here around it, this is the ruins of a Crusader town and fortress. But today we're going to cover a lot more periods, and this is just one of the highlights. Altogether, Beit Guvrin Maresha is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, which is great. And we're going to see it. Unfortunately, it's not as popular among tourists. Even I'm not even sure why. Maybe because there's not really a lot of like Jewish history behind it, or there's not even like loads of like Christian history. Yes, there were crusaders there. Yes, it was a Byzantine Byzantine town, but well, it's for some reason it's a bit overshined. It's a bit overlooked. Okay, let's put it this way. So I want to make it up to you because the place is gorgeous, absolutely. Well, Sharon, you've never heard of this place, and you have been to Israel how many times? Yeah. Well, over past year, I was in Beit Guvrin 4 times, and one of them with my family, and I decided to 8 times. That was my thinking. More than five. I remember there's definitely more than 5 times. So, and one time I was with my family, and I even decided to include a couple of photographs from my family trip to Beit Guvrin with Maresha and my husband Misha, who is now in Israel, just to show you how fun this place actually is. Okay, so without further ado, I would like to put the chat on hold because I'm definitely not going to be seeing any messages on the chat. Hi, Dolly. Well, Dolly is local, so let me know, Dolly, later on. How many times have you been to Maresha? Locals tend to come there, but the place is huge. This is a really, really big national park, and hardly anyone covers the entire area within one go. Okay, so today we're going to be exploring the territory of Judean foothills. Basically, this territory, more or less, is the ancient Judea, Jerusalem, and we're going to be very close to Jerusalem, like 40 kilometers away from Jerusalem, Judean foothills. And Beit Guvrin Maresha, this is the name. So you see, even on Google Maps, it will be one and the same name. Maresha is exactly what we're looking at now. It's Tel Maresha. And Tel, I remind you, please bear with me, those who have been at my tour, those who know what this is. So Tel is an elevation. It's a hill, but it's comprised of multiple layers of civilizations that used to live on this certain area. And well, Maresha is the name that you might remember from the book of Joshua, where he refers to Maresha as one of the towns actually one of the border towns of Israelites, because when the Israelites came to this lands, which is somewhat between the 1400s to 1200s, so they had to share this. They had to share this land. On the one hand, the Canaanites had been there before, right? So Canaan is the name of the land, the pagan tribes, and then also the Philistines, right? The peoples of the sea, the trade peoples who also came to this land approximately at the same time. So this territory was sort of the borders of the Israelite kingdom, so to speak. And so that's why we know this name from the biblical times. But as I said, there wouldn't be much relevance in the Jewish context. For example, somewhat around, we know that some 4,000 years ago, there definitely had been Canaanites living on this land. So the Tel Maresha, I'm not sure why this bar is not going anywhere. It's a bit definitely getting on my nerves. Oh, sorry. Is it okay? Yeah. A second. Yeah. We know that the Canaanites had been living on these lands, and Tel Maresha has the layers of Canaanite civilizations. Like it goes without saying. And then we know that there would be different peoples living on these lands. For example, the Sidonians. The Sidonian people, they would always be neighbors to Israelites. Since it was a border town, there was a lot of trade interaction, and Edomites, like Idumean people. Actually, Herod's mom was Herod's parents. Herod's mom was from Idumea, and also Sidonians. They are the people who came from Sidon, a town in modern day Lebanon, and we're going to see the. I'm always struggling to pronounce his name. Apollophanes. This is the head of the Sidonian community that lived on these lands. The Sidonians are believed to had lived here somewhat 10th, 8th, 9th centuries BCE, around that time. With dates, it's a bit complicated. It's not so easy to date it properly. Well, but this is the approximate timeline that we're given. And these are the caves. And I should tell you that actually the caves, it's the key word here, because another name for this area is Beit Guvrin. And starting from, approximately the same period, most people who would be living in the Judean foothills, they would be living underground almost. So they would have a lot of life underground. Beit Guvrin is believed to have originated from the word, Beit is house, and Guvrin is probably something coming from Aramaic language that actually stands for cave, so a house of caves. These are burial caves of a very rich Sidonian family. For some reason, they decided to settle down here, and this is the we know because it was there was it was signed that this is the this is the burial cave of the Apollophanes family, and what you see here are the restored frescoes with a lot of illustrations, a lot of animals with and these niches. This is there where the bodies used to be kept for 1 year. And then a year later, family members of the deceased would be coming in, taking out the bones and putting them in the main section over there. It's one of the ideas. It's what had been found by archaeologists in the 19th century. So this is me and my husband. We were there on a weekend. There were a lot of people, but the videos was filmed on very, very quiet days in the morning on the business day, and there was nobody there, which only proves the fact that very few tourists are taken there. Mostly Israelis, mostly locals, but then the locals would normally be coming, of course, on weekends for picnics and just to hang out with families and friends. And then you see these illustrations. This actually shows you something different. These are already the influences of Hellenistic culture. And with Hellenistic culture, which means that, the Greeks came here in the 300s. So this is when Alexander the Great came to these lands, which means that Edomites, Sidonians, the Jews would be living on one and the same territories. And then the Hellenistic culture came, and you see the influence because Hellenistic culture was so big and it was really strong that the peoples living on this in this land, be those pagans and even Jewish people, unfortunately, yes, they had been influenced a lot. Hence, we know the wars, right, of the Maccabean revolts against the Hellenistic culture. Well, you know the story when the Jews tried to protect their identity, their rituals, their faith, and the Greeks, and then with the Romans, things were more or less okay for some time, but then we know that eventually the Romans destroyed Jerusalem and they pushed away the Jews from the land because the Jews would be always pain in the neck for the Romans. So that's just the story. I just decided to cut to the chase. So over here, for example, this is the dog, the Cerberus, right, the protecting the kingdom of the dead. And yeah, of course. So this is the Hellenistic symbol, and you see that. So in these burial rituals, you will see the borrowings from the Hellenistic culture, and this is, by the way, why we know to whom this burial cave belonged. Apollophanes is written over there. And then also, some ritual practices like burial practices are also very similar to those of the Jews. The Jews would also, for some time, would be using the same. They would be for 1 year. So after a year, since the burial, family members would be coming in, taking the bones, putting them in special bone boxes, and they would be stored. It's a smaller niche, in a smaller niche. And there's interesting inscription over here as well. That kind of shows you already a bit, I would say, even bigger penetration of Hellenistic culture. This was left by, allegedly, a couple that would be coming to this cave for dates, and it's written here. So definitely one of those big influences Hellenistic culture will be, of course, a lot more freedom and I would say very inappropriate behavior for many other religions in the peoples living on this land. well, of course, the Sidonians were not the only peoples living here, as I said. Multiple, well, definitely different peoples would be settling here. And this is just one cave. But actually, altogether, in Tel Maresha and Beit Guvrin, there are about thousands of caves found. Actually, this land is called the land of thousands of caves, and because of the caves, exactly. Because of the degree of preservation and the importance of those caves that basically tell you the story of the everyday life of the people that have been inhabiting these lands for centuries, for thousands of years. It's all here. The reason why, um, at some point, of course, the Canaanites did not live in the caves, but so later on, at some point, life would be kind of they would be downshifting, like literally, like literally. There are several reasons to it. Well, the climate, first of all, and then also because these historically had been like a border region, like on the border, there would be a lot of conflicts here at different times. At times it was more peaceful, relatively peaceful. At times it was not that okay. So people, just for the sake of, just to keep on the safe side, they would prefer to live underground. And Judean foothills are basically made of limestone, which is very easy to work with, to carve from. And eventually, this would become also big industry as well. So the land of thousands of caves, and in those caves you will find the dwellings, interesting columbariums, of course caves, of course cemeteries. Well, look, these are people depicted. This is not typical, in Judaism you cannot find that, right? So this is definitely Hellenistic culture, Hellenistic culture. Um, and its penetration would only be stronger and stronger with every century until the Byzantine period, basically. So that's just two burial caves. There are a lot more burial caves. Um, from what we've been told, because I visited this place also within my guiding course, that altogether about 4% of Beit Guvrin Maresha actually have been excavated, to the date. There is a lot more probably hiding, from us underground. And because there's also kind of an issue here, because in some areas it's not really recommended just to walk on your road, because you may accidentally fall down, uh, you know, fall somewhat in a, not a trap, but just because with time, uh, it could be some caves that haven't really been discovered properly. Many caves actually were discovered and then they would be filled up again, because it's not very easy to also preserve it, because once it's exposed to the sun, once it's exposed to oxygen, it's a bit different story. But anyway, so we've seen some birds here, and we are in another cave that is quite a special cave, and it's only the beginning. We'll be talking about the way people worked with this with the limestone. But take a look at that. So this is the famous crisscross cave. It's just carved in the shape of a cross, but it has no relevance to Christianity, because it's still from the from a bit earlier period. And this is columbarium. Columbarium. This is a birdhouse. Just a sec. Гриш, только осторожней, пожалуйста, ладно? Columbarium. So this was the place for pigeons, a pigeon farm, basically. Pigeons, well, okay, let's even start from Judaism. Pigeons, well, it is considered like pigeons' meat is considered kosher. And pigeons were not only were used for food, but they were also sacrificed. in Judaism, up until the destruction of the Second Temple, the sacrifice was animal sacrifice was practiced in the temple, and the rich people, could afford sacrificing bigger animals, but the poor people would normally sacrifice pigeons. And also, pigeons were used, as a pigeon mail, and the pigeon droppings would be used as natural fertilizer. And here in Beit Guvrin in Maresha, it reached its peak. They're about like only in this cave there are actually thousands of these small niches, like nests for pigeons. And it's not the only columbarium in Israel. So it was very, very common. And we can also, from different sources, from different trade documents that relating to different periods, we know that Beit Guvrin was a big supplier of pigeons, was a big supplier of olive oil. So there was a lot of industry. So pigeon breeding was an industry here. Which means they would definitely be producing more than they needed. And different trade documents, also different, stamps found proving that the trade interaction, commercial relations with other towns and other peoples as well. It's quite an impressive place to be. Kids love it. It looks absolutely surreal. I've never been to a place like that before. That's true. And with you about 7 or 8 months ago, we visited also stalactite caves in Judean mountains. That's actually very close. It's about 20 minutes drive from the caves, and it's all around Jerusalem. As I said, about 40 kilometers from Jerusalem. These are quite special territory. So this is quite a special territory. And the actually, Judean foothills, Judean mountains are basically all together. It's a very important area where it's basically the settings for the events of the Old Testament. It's true. And you can just hang out for, I would say, 3 days at least at different national parks, and enjoy those places and learn about the history. Now we're going down again to another cave, and again pigeons here. It looks like these pigeons have this genetic memory that they need to be here. And here they are. Welcome to the so-called Polish cave. Look at its size, right? And it's interesting that over here you can see a layer of plaster, right? So plaster, if you see a plaster in the caves, it means that this place had been used as to store water, as a water container. So it was plastered, it was a cistern. And surprisingly, there is no any evidence whatsoever of any underground water streams. It's not here, but there have been found dozens and dozens of cisterns to collect the rainwater, because in winter this area gets a lot of rains, with with also a lot of potential flash flood situations. I think just today there was a risk of flash floods in Israel. So this is quite possible. It happens. So first of all, it was used as a cistern to store the rainwater, and then later on, it is believed to be already the Hellenistic period. The pigeons would be also bred here. And this is already the photo of the video I took with my phone, showing my son Grisha, and like how it all looks. Grisha loved it there, and there are a lot of birds there, and sometimes it really doesn't really feel safe, but not because you think that this is gonna fall on you. not going to collapse because it's all carved in a very special shape, bell shape. We will be talking about it later. I take it to the Bell Caves. But it was dangerous because because of so many birds, you didn't know really what to expect from them. So you tried not to look up very much. And they asked Richard to put on his hat. Why it's called Polish Cave? Well, over here you see the stone with some carvings on it. These are the carvings from the Second World War times. In 1943, Polish division found this cave. By that time it had already been discovered. The first discoveries would be made here in 1870s by French archaeologists. And then later on it would be ongoing. And the Polish officers just left some inscription for us. That's basically it. By the way, among those Polish officers, there was Menachem Begin, and there were quite a lot of Jewish officers in the Polish army. We have just seen the restored olive press. There are a lot of many olive presses on the territory. They said olive oil production was a big industry and it would be exported to everywhere. And let's see that they even managed to place all their industries also underground. So there's like really underground olive oil manufacture. So this is the crushing stone. This is the place where they would first of all just crush olives. So this is the stone, the threshing stone, and over here this is the wooden beam. Here normally a donkey or some animal would be placed, and then the donkey will be walking around, and the stone would be crushing the olives. That's the first stage, and then they crushed olives, and that's kind of interesting feature because Israeli oil, so to speak, and the oil manufactured in this territory would be different from the oil made in Italy, in Greece. I'm not a specialist in olive oil manufacture, but the olive oil manufactured in this region, it would be made together, it would be crushed and made together, processed together with the seeds, and that's why it's just a little bit more bitter. It is different. It is different from the oil I tasted in Greece. But again, I'm not a big specialist. And over here we see the second stage. So those crushed olives would be brought over there, and they would be placed below the wooden beams. And then on the wooden beams, the weights would be placed, and then first of all, the beams, the weights would be lighter, and then the very first oil that would be pressed from those crushed olives would be the extra virgin olive oil, and it would be the best. And then the more weights, and then so the less quality olive oil would be pressed from those olives. That's how it works. Basically, it's not a rocket science. It's just interesting to see all these constructions restored. And from one of the sources that I come across, they mentioned 100 tons of olive oil produced over a year. So that's a big industry for sure. And this is all underground. So basically, it doesn't mean that there was no life on the surface. There was a lot, but most of it was underground. And I'm not sure whether anybody else, apart from the peoples living here, knew about it. I hardly doubt. Really, I hardly doubt. And you wouldn't find here any synagogues. You wouldn't find here any mikvaot, because, as I said, already starting from, let's say 6th, 7th century BCE, it would be mostly would be the friendly tribes, like the Idumeans, the Sidonians, they would be settling here. So this was kind of a borderline. And then Judean foothills were very I would say, commercial area. There would be a lot of trade going on. A lot of trade routes would be crossing it. So we have just seen the piles of um, columns, capiteles, and different construction materials. That's what has been found in the territory, and these items are just waiting either to be used in restoration or to be placed elsewhere. You can find it in many archaeological parks, in many national parks. That's totally fine. So I suggest we we visit these caves, and then we have a very short, super tiny Q&A, and then we'll resume, and we might overrun a bit because there is so much to show in this huge place. Okay, welcome to the Bell Caves. They're called Bell Caves because they are they're shaped like cave, like bells. So it's limestone, right? And limestone is very soft. And it is believed that that these caves were made, well, at least they started in around Byzantine times only. Uh, we know this from the marks on the walls. Most probably, they started even earlier because obviously the limestone quarrying is something known from before, but probably these caves were not that big. And then later on, let's say fifth century, sixth century Common Era, they would start going deeper and deeper. They started on the top. You have seen on the top there is like a small round holes, right? This is how they would start. They would start from the ground, of course. They would start from above, and then they would start digging and digging and digging. Well, normally, well, the first several meters would be like really hard materials. It's like when the limestone, well, limestone can get very hard if it's exposed to the water, to the changes of temperatures also, and then the first like it's like crust, and this crust is called nari. And well, if you're patient enough and you keep on digging, then you'll get to the softer layers, and then it's all yours. And this is how they started digging it, from the top to the bottom. And they try to give this case a conical shape, well, bell shape, basically bell shape, because it's the most it's the safest shape. They knew it back then. Like I didn't know it even before I visited that it's the safest. But yeah, of course, because the domes are also the most um well the strongest and the most reliable constructions, right? So it's physics, it works, it's true. So and they knew it back then, of course, and that's why we still have those caves. So what did they do with the limestone they quarried? That's a good question. Uh, Well, archaeologists, historians are not unanimous about it. Well, it was for construction materials. It was used for different churches. It built in Byzantine time, of course, on the vast territory of the Holy Land. And then later on, so they keep, why is Byzantine period? Why do we know that? Because, well, you can't really date stones. You can only use carbon-14 analysis to on organic materials. With limestone, you cannot. But archaeologists have found a lot of crosses here. And you can see some inscriptions, some carvings. And later on, they keep finding Arabic inscriptions, which with a name of Allah written. So, which means that after the Byzantine period, when the first Muslim imperium in mid 7th century started, this quarry would be in the hands of Muslims, and they continued. And limestone was used for construction of mosques. That's true. Well, the famous white mosque in Ramle, for example, is built from the limestone quarried in Maresha, Beit Guvrin. So, um, so the first and foremost need would be, of course, the construction material. Yeah. So, but as I said, there was some life on the surface above the ground, and this is what archaeologists and restorers left for us. These are the villas of the Byzantine period, allegedly, supposedly. And so, yeah, there was life here. And we don't know whether they really tried to hide the underground life, but it looks like it. So it's not so easy to see that there is something going on underground from afar. So you see some villas, you see some some habitation, right? You see some life going on, and it doesn't look impressive. Well, like it looks like a small settlement. There's not really much need to attack them. To leave. This is like super impressive. Okay, so now let's have a short Q&A, and then so we'll go on. And the longer Q&A, I know I owe you a longer Q&A. We're going to have it in the end. Okay, so the chat is back on. Questions are welcome. So with with the dates, it's very difficult to say exactly at which period, for example, the Israelites left particularly this place and when the Edomites moved in or when the Sidonians moved in. It's so difficult. And it's also difficult, well, to say, okay, so when the Israelites and the Philistines came, where did the Canaanites go? That's a big mystery. We still don't know where they went. They probably assimilated somehow, obviously with the Philistines, not with Israelites. Well, not as much. And then, okay, but okay, and then all of a sudden Phoenicians come later on. And who are the Phoenicians? It turns out that the Phoenicians were actually those Canaanites, those who had to leave these lands and they returned. There's a lot of questions, so it's not so easy. Okay, let me see. There was a question about the bones. What have they done with all the bones? Sharon, well, the Israeli Antiquities Authority, what they do with all the bones found, they take the bones and they bury them at a secret location, at a very special spot, because according to Jewish laws, there's nothing more impure than a dead body. And so all the bones, all the bones are taken, all this, and they stored in a special place. So the bones are stored elsewhere. I've never been to this place. Like we know there is a place like that, but you're not allowed to visit it. No graffiti. There used to be a graffiti, Robert. There used to be a graffiti with the Sidonian caves in 1902. The archaeologists actually took photos of the frescoes found in the Sidonian caves, and then they left, hoping to return some years later to continue the explorations and, well, the studying. And then, well, because of the lootings, because they had, over the Ottoman period, the Ottoman period is notorious for lootings, for multiple lootings of different places, be those Jewish places, Christian places, it doesn't really matter, or even the Mamluk time heritage. It doesn't matter. There was always, the lootings, and then so there was graffiti found, so they had to restore all those frescoes, and well, basically from scratch, because they had photographs. What have they done with all the bones? Okay, yes, it's an archaeological site, Charity. Yes, it's under the Israel National Parks Authority and Israel Antiquities Authority. Yes, of course, it's a national park, and it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. But only you were there once ages ago. The caves were raw and full of. Yeah, so it was long ago then. Yes, a group mate of mine. So when she just made Aliyah, which was like 40 years ago, she lived in a kibbutz and in Beit Shemesh, I think. So it's really, really just that area. And she worked in that kibbutz, and she worked in Beit Guvrin, cleaning all those caves from from hundreds of years of birds droppings, garbage, and whatnot. And it's all nice and clean now, and there's no dump There is no mold. No, it's all good. It's nice to be there. They killed and ate pigeons. Yes, they did, Robert. And even now in Jerusalem, you can still find places, but not Jewish places. In Muslim Quarter, you can still find places where they cook pigeons. I haven't tried it, but my friends have. I've seen it. Yeah. Not that I'm judging. No, no. Mm-hmm. Interesting, interesting, Dolly. Wow. Well, there was a lot of reconstruction going on. There's a lot of work going on. It took dozens and dozens of years to clean those caves. Why couldn't they leave the bones there? Because this goes against, because, well, that means that, well, Jews would no longer be allowed to go there. And it means also, like, people would not be able to visit this. People would not be able to, tourists would not be able to visit this place and, well, and study this place. No, it's just how it works. You won't find any bones anywhere. The only bones you can find in well, okay, there are Christian places where you can find relics, where you can find the skulls in a monastery. Yeah, you can find that not far from the Kasr al-Yahud, the place where Jesus was baptized in the Jordan River. So there is a monastery from Byzantine period. So there are skulls there. Yeah, there you can find it. Pagans ate and sacrificed pigeons. Yes, that as well. Yeah, pagans ate and sacrificed pigeons, and the Jews ate and sacrificed pigeons too. Yes, but not anymore. Nobody killed the bats. They lived and they escaped. I assume that, of course. Can you enter and tour the area? Yes. Yes, there is an admission fee. It's just the Israel National Parks Authority. It's like 28 shekels per adult to visit. And actually, it's recommended to come with a car because it's a it's a very, very big national park, and from one place to the other, you really need to take cars. So that's why it also took us that long to film everything, and we had to come several times. Yeah, pigeons are kosher. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Pigeons are kosher. Dolly, I don't know what they are tasty. I have no idea. Have you tried it? Are they tasty? Well, Cindy, but they do it now because they live in the big cities. Back then, it wasn't like that. It was the well, the world used to be a much cleaner place back then. But yeah, well, kosher, it doesn't mean clean, it means pure, right? It's also different. Okay, so let's move on. Oh, sorry. So I'll turn off the chat and then we'll resume. If you want me to elaborate, Cindy, on that difference between clean and pure, um, yeah, I'll be happy to do that. But after we are done with with Beit Guvrin. Okay, so let's move on. Surprise, surprise, we're going underground again. Why would we do that again? Because right now we're going to see a little bit, a little bit of the underground city. So we have already seen the olive press, and there are like a dozen of olive manufacture sites in Beit Guvrin. And we've already seen the two columbariums, the two columbaria. Let's speak Latin here. It's a Latin words. Okay, okay, two columbaria. Then, uh, but there were houses there, cisterns. It's all here. Look at the system. So the steps, the water reservoirs, the houses, uh, everything underground, rooms, houses, underground city with different houses. I assume that there were even like children's playground there. I think so. They might even have had their own Starbucks, underground Starbucks there. I'm not sure. Uh, Yeah, and this is impressive. And you don't really get this feeling of like, well, like when people get claustrophobic, like it doesn't really give you this feeling. There is a lot of air. It's actually cool. So on a hot day, it's nice to be there, and it's so spacious. It's so big. It doesn't look it doesn't look dangerous even. No, it feels really safe to be there. And just some more photographs. Look at the steps. Like look at these corridors. Well, I it felt a bit weird because I didn't want to be lost there, but of course, it's all safe with Israel National Parks authorities. They're not gonna let you go in places like where it's dangerous to go. And yeah, there is still water. Yeah, and in many places you can still see if it's if it's a rainy season, you can still see the water collected there. So it works, and there are dozens and dozens of these water cisterns. Okay, and now altogether we are now in the Byzantine period. So in Byzantine period, it was considered that the grandmother of Jesus, so Anna, was from Judean foothills, somewhere around Beit Guvrin. It's just a tradition that she was born here, but it's just one tradition, and there's another one that kind of actually contradicts it, but well, they're more inclined to think that this is where she was born, and well, hence what we're looking at are the ruins of a church that was built from the limestone in the Byzantine times, and that used to be the Saint Anna's Church, built in around the 5th or 6th century. Again, it's hard to date limestone. And look again at this dome shape, right? Um, Perfect. So just perfect. It's a very picturesque place, and it's more often than not people really don't reach this far. It's a bit to the distance. So from the cave to here, it was like 30 minutes walk. We took a car, of course, just as close as we could. Yeah, but again, other than this part of the church, there's not really much to see. And another highlight is this. Already we are in the Roman period, so which followed the Hellenistic period, well, the Greeks period, right? And but the Romans, even though they were Romans, they still were the representatives and the followers of the Hellenistic tradition, the Hellenistic culture. Anyway, so it's basically the same Hellenistic period, but Roman Hellenistic period. In around 200, they built the amphitheater. And what's unique about the amphitheater, so amphitheater, like amphibians from both sides. Amphibians live both in the water and on the land. So amphitheaters, they have both sides on, right? So this is how you will never confuse theater and amphitheater. And it was built as an amphitheater from the beginning, which is quite rare. I mean, from what they have found on the Holy Land, most Roman theaters would be built originally as theaters with only one side. So, but amphitheaters, well, there are amphitheaters, but normally they would be added. So the second part of the amphitheater would be added later. But well, as I said, there are very few amphitheaters in Israel, and well, of course, at times of the Romans, the all those sins of the Hellenistic culture reached its extremes, and this amphitheater, of course, was used for gladiator fights. Well, the fights human beings versus bestiarium. Yeah, it was all here. And where we are now, we're basically walking under the seats. And if you've ever been to any Roman theater, amphitheater, anywhere, then you will easily like recognize that it's basically the same. It's just it's just the same everywhere. And over here, there is a place where uh, the gladiators would be praying before the battles, before the fights. The gladiators would be coming from the diverse backgrounds from everywhere. They would normally be slaves, and they were allowed to pray here in this room to whatever gods they they wanted to pray, and then they would be taken to the arena to fight. And normally, um, well, over here, for example, so what are these columns doing here? They were added in Byzantine period, in Byzantine times already. Uh, Obviously, in Byzantine times, there were no longer gladiator fights, and normally in former amphitheaters and theaters in the Byzantine times, there would be markets, and the columns would be much higher, and then normally it would be roofed because it was so hot. Due to the heat, due to the sunlight, it was impossible to trade. So, but with the roofs, it was okay, and it even created this draft. Uh, you know, but there's not really much left from those Byzantine markets, but the amphitheater is still around, and the amphitheater actually has a VIP lounge. But before we do that, take a look over here. So there's a lot going on. It looks like a wall. Later on, and I know I have to jump from one period to another, so very quickly I will just remind you, after the Romans, Christianity becomes the official religion. So the Byzantine period starts. Then in mid-7th century, Muslim religion was founded, and the Muslims came to these lands. Then in 1099, Crusaders, the first crusade, reached the Holy Land. Jerusalem is taken, and then up until the end of the 12th century, Jerusalem will be in the hands of Crusaders. Then they would lose it to Ayyubids, to Muslims. Salah was in charge of the Ayyubids, and then eventually the Mamluks would push the Crusaders completely away, which happened in the very end of the 1200s. So, but we are now still in the glorious Roman period on the VIP, just this is the VIP seat. It is believed that even the Roman emperors visited some of the gladiator fights, and you see they're enjoying themselves. And good thing that the Caesar is saying that the gladiator is good to go. So not this. So he's gonna leave at least just for another fight. And over here, so you see there is like metal grids. In the Roman times, actually there underground, under the arena would be the bestiariums, would be the niches where the hungry, angry, furious animals were kept. And then there would be fights of humans versus hungry animals. So yeah, that was definitely the Roman style time. And now we are in the Crusader period. So since in the Byzantine times, it was believed that Anna, grandmother of Jesus, was from Beit Guvrin. And by the way, also there is an idea that Herod might have been born here because of his mother's origin, and it's quite plausible. Some people claim that he was born in Ashkelon, which is kind of good for me, but I personally don't think so. But it could be that he was born here in Beit Guvrin. Why not? Well, we don't know. We probably never will. But anyway, so and Crusaders, when they came, they would just pick up those Byzantine traditions, and they would continue building their religious site, pilgrimage sites, and they built a church here. beautiful one, big one. They didn't destroy the Byzantine one. They just built another one because, like, the more the merrier, right? And they used limestone. Of course, they used the limestone. They used the construction material found here from the previous times. They would always, the Crusaders would always be all right about the secondary use of stones. That's why every here and there would be parts of columns, sticking from the middle of the wall. That was totally fine, just totally fine. And well, I'm not sure if the video can actually fully give you this feeling of how grand that Crusader church was. The vaults of the ceilings, all these pointed arches. So the Gothic architecture was born in the Holy Land. It's still quite dubious whereas it was the Crusaders who started building this arched shape windows and vaults. It could have been in the Ayyubids period, but we're not sure. So, but it's still like believed that okay, most probably it was the Crusaders, but the Gothic architecture that we love so much, it was born here. And look at this. I mean, it doesn't really feel the same in the video, but when you are there, it's fantastic. And there's a beautiful draft exactly where I'm standing now. And here used to be an apse. And in the apse, this is exactly this is where the altar is. This is where the communion is prepared, right? So this is where the most sacred part in a Christian church is. And then it was written just before we came that it was not only the church, but it was also a mosque, a church and a mosque. In Israel, you can find places that both used to be church and churches and mosques at different times. Because, because yes, Muslims would do that. They would turn churches into mosques. Yes, it was pretty common. It was pretty common. And then the Mamluks would be doing just the same, and then the Ottomans would be doing well. In the Ottoman times, they didn't build much in the Holy Land. We don't know much about the Ottoman times Palestine, which is the name of the region, not the name of the country. There was never a country called Palestine, right? I'm just saying the region. So in the region, we don't know much about what was going on because it wasn't really given much attention at that time. The Ottomans only paid more attention to the Holy Land when in mid 19th century, after they nearly lost the Crimean War against the Russian Empire, and with the help of the West, they managed to stay afloat, and this is when they decided to open the Holy Land for pilgrimage, for excavations, because they needed support. So that's why. Uh, but who knows how things uh, would have been, had not had if the Ottomans hadn't really felt, you know, weak by that time. We don't know. So over here, sorry, I just needed to explain a few more things, and that we continue. Over here, there is an interesting niche. So this is a mihrab. This is a special niche in the wall that faces Mecca. Normally, the entire wall in the mosque, that wall in the mosque would it's called Qibla. It just shows you the direction, and then a niche in that wall would be the praying niche because Muslims pray towards Mecca. Yep, and there is a way to go up and to look at the Crusader village. So the whole area used to be surrounded with the walls because Crusaders needed to protect themselves from the onslaughts of Fatimids and other Muslim families, and there was a lot of bloodshed everywhere. But the Crusaders did a good job, and they eventually would be staying here up until 1200s, early 1200s. As I said, in 1187, they lost Jerusalem. which meant that it was very close to Jerusalem, and there's no way they could really stay here for a long time after that. Eventually, Crusaders all had to move towards the coastal plain. This is where they would still retain their fortresses and cities for almost a century. It was different at different times, but more or less the same period. And well, as you know, the Crusaders, there were several crusades, and there were several orders of the Crusaders. So here in Beit Guvrin, it would be the hospitaller order that would be in charge of the construction of the big city, the big fortified city. And obviously, in the Crusader times, they had no idea. Well, most probably, okay, they had no idea about the underground city. Just well, just hundreds of meters from where they settled, that we know, and they didn't have any they didn't really have any underground cities, like massive underground cities. No, they did not. So all the underground things we keep finding, it's mostly it's the definitely the BCE periods mostly. And but the Crusaders they did have their sisters as well, because uh, whoever you are, a Crusader or a Mamluk or a Byzantine guy or whoever, you need water, and they would be collected. They would be doing just the same. Okay, so we're not even overrunning much. The chat is back on, so please feel free to send in the questions. And in the meantime, I will be just once again sharing with you my schedule for for this week. So there's going to be a thank you, Charity. It's a great place, and I like it. Looks like a kokoshnik on me. I like it. Nice, nice. Hmm. It's a great place. I mean, I like Beit Guvrin so much. Grisha liked it. Misha liked it. It's great. We took our friends there. It was a lot of fun. So what I'll be doing? How did they see underground? Ooh, Julie, who saw underground? Can you specify? Can guide yourself, hero guide, or either way. You you can just you can just pay the entrance fee and go with your car and then park at the designated areas and then go and explore. Yeah, sure. The original people who worked under there and lived there. Sorry, I'm not getting the question. How did how did they see underground? Ah, how did they see underground? Well, they did it during the daytime, of course. And in the dark, well, at night it was dark there, of course. Yeah. Well, they had fire, they had the lights, they had bonfires, of course. Yeah. But all the work and the quarries will be done during the daytime, of course. Yes, yes, yes. Ah, so you did eat pigeons. Okay, okay. Well, I've never tried it. It's not doesn't really look very appetizing to me. Um, yeah, but it's definitely something typical, you know, for in back then in the Jewish cuisine, and even not only the Jews. So before I continue with the questions, so this weekend I'm doing another episode of Menshikov Palace. So this 18th century palace in St. Petersburg of the best friend and most little associate of Peter the Great. It's now part of the Hermitage Museum. Also, I'm taking you to the Hermitage for another episode of the Impressionist collection. We've already seen many names. We're gonna be studying a lot of Van Gogh, Van Gogh, whichever one you prefer. Also, I'm doing a very special tour about a Georgian artist that I'm absolutely fascinated with. He was recognized a lot in France. He was friends with many impressionists and post-impressionists. So Ladol Gudeshvili, I mentioned him a lot on my Tbilisi tours. So I'll be doing a tour about him. I went to his gallery, and well, I'll guide you about some of his really fantastic artworks. And his biography, very interesting. Also, on March 24th, I'm taking you again to Sololaki. We continue our exploration. And if you missed the previous episode, I was with my son. We drove by a coffee shop, a bar. We even managed to sneak into a backyard. If you missed that tour, please, uh, well, just really look at it. It was really fun. I really enjoyed that tour very much. And Grisha also got to tell a story and guide us a little bit there as well. Well, not about Georgia, though, but about the Netherlands, the Dutch history. Well, it's still there on my YouTube. It's going to be there for one or 2 days more on the YouTube channel. And of course, I haven't shared with you the link, so I'll do that gladly once again. Um, and of course, I'll be doing also a tour for World Virtual Tours. It's going to be a walk in the old city, old town of Tbilisi, as well. Okay, let me see the questions. Oh, last year, mother ate pigeons after World War II. Okay, well, I assume those were very hungry years, and I'm sure people ate whatever they could. Also during the siege of Leningrad as well. There was no cats, dogs, birds in the streets. Yeah, of course. The sisters and issues or whatever remind me of a modern day storage bit. Small. Maybe. Interesting. Thank you, Dolly. From an Israeli, well, coming from an Israeli, these words are even like, even, I don't know. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. How do they have light? I don't know. How do they have light? Well, they had light. How did the first peoples have light? They had wood. Uh, they had wood next to them, all around them. They'll be just using the stoves, and this is how they would have the lights. Of course, they had the lights back then. Of course. But that's a good question. I never thought about it, but I assume that's how this is how they would actually have light. Good question. Um, must have been the playgrounds as well since they were children. Yeah, Maria. Yes, there were children. Yes. Thank you, Sharon. Sharon, well, back then when I was there, uh, it didn't have this horrible connotation. But of course, I was aware of the tunnels way before that, and everybody knew about it. And Ashkelon has so many tunnels, and it's it looks like there were some Hamas tunnels there as well. Yeah, some Asian animals they can't eat us, right? Well, pigeons are not that relevant anymore. Yeah, well, yeah, that's true, Robert. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining, even at this unusual time. Again, if you joined later, the recording will be available on my YouTube channel for a few days in open access. And then, as you know, there are more than 220 videos available for my supporters 24/7. I've just provided the links to my PayPal or Buy Me account, Buy Me a Coffee account if you feel like thanking me for the tour. And I'll see you on Saturday with Grisha, of course, because with Grisha, I have nowhere else to get him to. And I might be adding another tour of Israel shortly. We'll see how it goes. Yes, on my website, I on my website, anegai.com, I list all the tours I give. Well, I don't list the B2B tours, the tours that I do for companies, or like private virtual tours that I do, for different clients. So other tours that anyone can attend, I list them on my website, on Together Virtually website, which is the Guides Collective. The virtual tours don't want us to list our tours on Together Virtually Collective, so we don't. But on my website, I list all the tours. That's where you can find them. Yes, Dolly, I know Sunday is Purim, and we will see if we could attend an event in the morning in the local Jewish community. We'll see that. Thank you so much for joining, and I'll see you on Saturday. Thank you so much. Thank you for the coffees and PayPals. Thank you, Dolly. Thank you. I'll see you soon. Bye bye.